back to the JMC Reviews. Today is September 11th, one of the darkest and still one of the saddest days to look back on in recent American history. In fact, today is the 20th anniversary of September 11th, 2001, aka 9/11, the day that terrorists hijacked 4 airplanes, 2 of which crashed into the World Trade Center, aka the Twin Towers in New York City. It was and still is one of the most tragic days in American history. People still talk about it. Many books, movies, and TV shows have covered the famous tragedy, and with the 20th anniversary, I decided to review a movie that was about 9/11, and while there are a lot of good films that have been made about 9/11, it's a lot easier and admittedly enjoyable to rip into a bad one. Which is why today we're going to be looking at the 2003 made-for-TV movie, Rudy, the Rudy Giuliani story.
What might be inappropriate is us saying anything about it. Some people say it's pretty good.
Bullshit! That is the ploy of a desperate man, of an unethical man, and I am neither. Oh, the world's filling up with people who Rudy Giuliani will never please.
A movie that tries to chronicle the rise in politics of former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who many remember for his quick and on-the-spot actions on that horrifying day.
Directed by Robert Dornhelm, an Austrian filmmaker with many
TV credits, including Anne Frank, The Whole Story, Identity Theft, The Michelle Brown Story, and Amanda Knox, Murder on Trial in Italy. The film was adapted from the book Rudy by investigative journalist, Village Voice senior editor, and frequent critic of Rudy Giuliani, Wayne Barrett. The film credits Stanley Weiser for writing the screenplay, having many credits on previous TV biography films such as Murder in Mississippi and Witness to the Mob. Theatrical credits of his include Oliver Stone's Wall Street and another film that chronicles the life of a big-time Republican, Oliver Stone's W from 2008. Although, even though he's credited, Weiser claims that his script was completely thrown out at the request of the film's lead actor and one of my all-time favorite actors, James Woods, and was rewritten by an uncredited Lionel Chetwynd, a well-known conservative screenwriter, to make it more pro-Giuliani.
This city loves Rudy Giuliani.
What does the Times say?
That you just might be a hero.
Now these days, and particularly to younger people, Rudy Giuliani is best known for being the former personal lawyer of former President of the United States, Donald Trump, particularly for his wild and pretty insane antics.
I told the president of the Ukraine that we're going to fight corruption.
Bill Clinton asked me, what's this guy Romney like? He's our Al Gore.
Did you all watch My Cousin Vinny? How many fingers do I got up? And she says, 3. These people were further away than my cousin Vinny was from the witness.
It's somebody's version of the truth, not the truth. It isn't truth. Truth isn't truth.
Give our people the truth.
What's your mission?
To disrupt the world.
Now, outside of an occasional joke here and there, I'm not going to comment too much on Rudy Giuliani of today, especially because at the time of filming this video, it's a little uncertain where Rudy Giuliani might be by the time this goes up.
No news is no news, unless it's good news. But we have no news, so...
But I will say, there was a time that Rudy Giuliani was looked upon very favorably, and this film was a result of that, made only 2 years after 9/11. And without further ado, let's jump into this film and see why it does not have the best reputation. First off, don't you just love how over-explanatory the title is? Rudy, the Rudy Giuliani story. I guess they didn't want the film to be confused with that other film called Rudy. You know, the one where Samwise Gamgee plays football. The film starts with a very sped-up montage of New York City, feeling like an opening you might see in one of the many Law and Order spin-offs.
We're introduced to Rudy Giuliani, played by James Woods.
I'll be history. A history lesson. Yeah, you'll be back, just like your hero, Mr. Churchill. Took 20 years and a war to resurrect Winston Churchill's name.
We We see Rudy and his bodyguard driving around New York City at night on September 10th, 2001, reflecting on his legacy with his days as mayor coming to an end and the less than favorable public opinion of him at the time.
Some say he did good, cleaned up the city a little, maybe.
Hey, and the guys that said that, they'd be right.
Thank you.
This whole opening, even for a TV movie, is very melodramatic, and the opera music doesn't help. We cut to the early morning of 9/11, and while having breakfast with future California gubernatorial candidate Bill Simon, Giuliani is alerted of the Twin Towers being attacked. He arrives on the scene as the towers burn and start to break apart. Which, by the way, is actual footage of the towers on 9/11, and I will get into my feelings on that later, but damn. With his team and various reporters and firemen, Giuliani stares in horror as the towers break apart, working fast and thinking hard to figure out what to do in this chaotic time.
Yeah, let's get the command center. All right, Rudy, we're closing command centers. What do you mean, you're closing the emergency command center in the 93 bombing? I made the order for that command center to be open. Yeah, I know that, Rudy, but...
Well, that was poor planning.
We then cut abruptly to 1982 when Giuliani was Associate Attorney General of the United States, being interviewed in Miami by Donna Hanover, who would eventually become his second wife, played by 90s relic Penelope Ann Miller.
She interviews him about a situation involving Haitian refugees coming to the United States seeking asylum.
Well, that shouldn't be that hard to understand. U.S. policy hasn't changed in this regard since the 20s. Political refugees are granted asylum. Economic refugees must go through normal immigration channels.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Giuliani.
It was a pleasure.
After probably the quickest and least confrontational interview about politics ever, Rudy asks her out on a date, which leads to a very rushed dinner where they discuss what matters most and what their aspirations are for the future.
Settle down, people. We seem to grow up soft.
I was settled down, but it depends on the family.
Oh, you definitely lived up to that statement, Rude.
My dad was very tough, but he believed in being a character builder.
You could say he's built a character. Whether it's a good one is debatable. Before going for a walk on the beach, she asks Rudy what happened to his first marriage, and before he can even answer, the film fades to them on the beach. Probably to avoid acknowledging the fact that Rudy Giuliani's first marriage was to his second cousin. Yeah. Probably would have been a little awkward to write that into some romantic banter.
I'm not gonna let someone else fuck my cousin. You know, if anyone's gonna fuck my cousin, it's gonna be me out of respect, you know.
And also the fact that they were still legally married at the time they started dating Donna Hanover.
Well, if you know him, you might understand his urges.
Worse than a rabid-ass baboon.
Yeah.
They walk on the beach talking about what Rudy hopes to do in the future and the people he looks up to, including Bobby Kennedy and how he was once a Democrat. Donna asks why he switched parties, and we get a line so corny, it almost sounds like the Hallmark Channel wrote it.
You know, Democrats always talked about things getting better. Republicans did whatever they could to make them better.
That's not what your mom said. After showing them on their first date, the movie just jumps to the two of them on their fucking wedding night.
What?
Yeah, it went from a date where we saw almost no romantic chemistry to him carrying her, wedding dress and all, into their new home.
Did I miss something?
And here is where the biggest problem in the film lies. This movie, which is only 89 minutes, less than an hour and a half, is trying to cover 19 years in the life of Rudy Giuliani, and it's going by way too fast. It tries to tackle his marriage, his legal and political career, his many ups and downs, but it goes by so quick that it's impossible to establish any real development in these major events in his life. Speaking of which, we then see Giuliani as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, one of the better chapters of his legacy. Over the course of about 16 minutes, the film skims through his career as a federal prosecutor, including his takedown of the New York Mafia and inside traders on Wall Street.
There is RICO, and there is conspiracy to commit RICO. They work together, they plan together, they divide up their turf together. We bring them all down, together.
This part of his career is actually pretty interesting, but every time it looks like they're gonna portray how he took on these complicated cases, the movie just cuts to the outcome. We see them establish who the criminals are, what they've done, and then we just cut to them being prosecuted, and it's like the film is aware that there has to be a beginning and an end, but they completely forgot the middle part.
What does incompetent mean?
And most of this sequence is just Giuliani making overzealous monologues about law, justice, and loving New York City. And I totally get it. It's right after 9/11, you gotta put in a bit of New York love, but the way he does it, it does not sound like how any normal human being would talk, and comes off a bit preachy and pandering.
I love this city. This is the greatest city in the world. This is not merely our job, it is our privilege. I will see you on the barricades.
I love this town!
The most memorable sequences in this whole segment are Giuliani freaking out over his right-hand man and friend Peter Powers, played by John Borgias, touching his signed Whitey Ford baseball, and having dinner with the inside traders, simply because I agree with Giuliani's line,
Calamari, an appetizer to share.
What can I say? I appreciate someone giving love to calamari. As a federal prosecutor, Rudy Giuliani had over 4,000 convictions, and this sequence could have been its own fascinating film, but this rush, blink you'll miss it segment we get feels more like cliff notes that would be used for a high school paper.
Oh, the world's filling up with people who Rudy Giuliani will never please.
With his legal career at an all-time high, Giuliani decides it's time to run for mayor of New York. He starts his first campaign in 1989, getting the support of Liberal Party Chairman Ray Harding.
You still got the odds against a Republican becoming mayor of New York.
LaGuardia pulled it off.
They talk about his stance on the death penalty.
I'm an ex-federal prosecutor. Bad guys get what they got coming to them.
Fair point.
Now, we've had pro-abortion law here in New York State since 1970. You'd have to respect that, Rudy. You following me?
If I take a solemn oath to uphold the law, Ray, I will honor that oath, regardless of my personal convictions.
If only all politicians followed that mindset. We get Giuliani making a stock political ad, in which Donna, ever loyal, tells him he needs to show more of Rudy the man and less of Rudy the candidate. Sounds like the filmmakers. He eventually loses to David Dinkins, who became the first black mayor of New York City. He concedes as gracefully as you'd expect.
Quiet, please. Shut up! Everybody just shut the hell up!
Tell me, how long have you had these feelings of hostility? You know, you really shouldn't keep your emotions all bottled up inside. You're hopeless.
It's David Dinkins, the next mayor of New York City. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Sam.
Oh, by the way, this film keeps jumping back and forth between Rudy Giuliani on 9/11 and his career in the law and rise in politics. Keeps going back and forth, and the transitioning between these scenes is very out of nowhere and very jumbled. It really takes you out of it just how fast they can go back and forth, and it's kind of similar to Stanley Weiser's other film, W, but that film was directed by Oliver Stone and had a lot better editing.
No, I like it. I like that.
Now, I will say, the scenes showing 9/11 are actually the best scenes in the movie. They're the only scenes that if you were to take them out of order and put them in a chronological layout, would actually tell a coherent story. And they actually do, despite the stock footage, do a good job portraying the chaos, fear, and showing Giuliani thinking fast on his feet on how to manage the city in such a terrifying time. We get a well-done sequence of Giuliani and his team getting trapped underground, and there's actually a touching/sad subplot of his executive assistant, Beth Petrone, losing her husband during the attacks and Giuliani comforting her. It's one of the more well-done, redeeming scenes he's given in the film. In 1992, Giuliani runs again for mayor. He appears at a rally of cops outside City Hall, yelling out that the policies of the Dinkins administration undermine the NYPD and are, as he puts it,
They are nothing but bullshit!
We see Dinkins from the back, with no dialogue, watching the series of events play out. Probably because it's cheaper to just use old news footage than hire a new actor to recreate certain events.
The demonstration turned ugly. There were racial slurs.
And for Rudy Giuliani to urge them on, as it were, demonstrate some irresponsibility on his behalf?
Huh. That's a little eerie.
Let's have trial by combat.
You can see at this point, Donna's starting to get a little fed up with Rudy's shit.
One hand tied behind their backs and the other holding their peckers.
Well, you could have been less inflammatory.
Oh, the world's filling up with people who Rudy Giuliani will never please.
As he continues to campaign, we're introduced to Rudy's press secretary and an infamous character in his life, Christine Logano, played by Michelle Nolden.
Look, what scares women most is crime. We're afraid to walk the streets, and if we can convince
We're
women
aware of
that
that. She's finished. Christine is my press secretary, and when she speaks, perhaps you could do her the courtesy of shutting up until she finishes.
You can see Rudy favors her.
all I'm proposing is that we hit women harder. All I'm proposing is that we hit women harder.
Okay.
We need you to shed your cold-hearted prosecutor image. People are beginning to see you as having a kindness deficit.
What are you talking about? I am the most caring, giving guy.
You serious?
Another abrupt cut later, and Giuliani is now the 107th mayor of New York.
Making me lose my train of thought here. I was saying something. What was it?
Oh, and we finally, for the first time, see his kids. Yeah, when watching this film, I honestly almost forgot that he had kids.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck? What?
We then jump to the Giulianis on a beach vacation with Christine coming along as a babysitter, and Giuliani isn't even being subtle with checking her out, even with his wife being right fucking next to him.
Low profile. You understand the meaning of the word low profile?
The movie then rushes through Giuliani's morality at a pace that puts the legal career segment of the film to shame, giving virtually no room for development as it depicts his not-so-pleasant relationship with the Board of Education, the crackdown on crime, Giuliani's frustration with Police Commissioner Bill Bratton getting more credit than him.
Why you got rid of a guy who was so successful at bringing down crime?
Commissioners come into City Hall, they do their time, and they move on.
I got just 2 words to say about that. Bullshit!
And the controversial shooting of West African immigrant Amadan Diallo.
If he hadn't reached in his pocket, they thought he looked suspicious.
Well, I get that, Howard. 41 bullets says they were very, very suspicious.
What do you expect him to do, Rudy? Wait to see if it was a gun?
Well, that's depressingly relevant.
Diallo's mother. She's canceled her meeting with you tomorrow.
What?
Sharpton talked to Rector.
That self-serving, preening, triple-talking egomaniac.
Although it's a pretty good description of Al Sharpton, you're one to talk, Rudolph. So much is just skimmed over and left out completely in this portrayal of Giuliani's morality that the most memorable scene is when he solves a construction layover problem by getting a new teapot for 2 bitchy ladies.
You two don't like working side by side? Is that it?
Well, it's her dirty habits. She makes tea for herself, leaves the wet bag sitting right there.
That is a big fat lie.
Can we see to it that a brand new teapot is brought down here? I don't know how much it will cost us, but right now those tea bags are costing us, I figure, a couple $100,000 a week.
Seems like it'd be similar just to get 2 new workers.
I am a very neat person. And maybe it's somebody else.
Who else drinks tea?
Maybe your mama drink tea.
Oh, you would take...
Yep. we got a black chick making a yo mama joke. Can you say early 2000s?
What? You think this a joke, Wigger? Don't be hating. This ain't a game.
The main vibe we get from this sequence is that he's an asshole that doesn't like hearing other people's ideas, but he gets the job done.
If you like me, fine. And if you don't, ladies and gentlemen, I don't really give a damn.
Mr. Mayor. I'm shatterproof. There ain't nothing you can show me. I'm still standing tall, so you all can't blow me.
During this time, we see Rudy and Donna grow more and more apart, and as the film depicts, he apparently starts a relationship with Christine. Something both parties have denied in real life, but who can know for sure?
And there's a lot of people around you right now that aren't very happy with me, so you saying that means an awful lot.
You know, if you walk in the rain, you're gonna get wet. It's the name of the game.
These scenes are actually some of the more interesting parts in the film, mostly for the fact that we actually get some development going on here. And a lot of that is owed to the chemistry that James Woods and Michelle Nolden have, and you could say Woods and Nolden as Giuliani and Christine have better chemistry than Woods and Miller as Giuliani and Donna. Speaking of which, the scene where Donna confronts Rudy over his affair is actually pretty well acted by Penelope Ann Miller.
Yes, she's in there. I work here.
Don't even think about trying to con me. You think I'm a fool?
And while her character is really underdeveloped to the point that even her husband cheating on her is not enough to really make you care, Miller is giving her all in this performance. In fact, one of the few things I'd say you can't fault this film for is they got a good cast and everybody is not sleepwalking through their performances. Eventually, Giuliani's right-hand man and friend Peter leaves him over his relationship with Christine.
If you have any aspirations for higher office, you ought to think twice about the company you're keeping.
I don't need that kind of advice, Peter. Least of all from you.
It's scenes like this that make you unsure just how the film wants you to perceive Giuliani.
Being miserable and treating other people like dirt is every New Yorker's God-given right.
During this time, Christine reveals that Giuliani's father, someone who he often credits for his passionate view on the law, had a criminal record.
Look, when you were growing up, I mean, no one mentioned anything.
Never. Don't ask stupid questions. What did this panty sniffer say about my dad? What did he say he did?
Oh, a public school prig could do better than that.
There's only so far you can go with TV censors.
They found an arrest.
I don't give a shit what they found. It is not true about my father.
It was 1934, before you were born. He held up a milkman. He was incarcerated at Sing Sing. He served a year and change.
This scene is treated like it's supposed to carry a lot of emotional weight, but the scene comes out of nowhere and it's only about 3 minutes and it never gets brought up again. Even for an overrushed film, this scene makes you question, what was the point of that?
I don't know.
After this, Giuliani meets Judith Nathan, played by the late Kirsten Bishoprick, who would eventually become his third wife.
What'd you say to dinner out? At my age, the little soldier needs a lot more thumping before it starts pumping. You know what I mean? You know, I do find, though, if I tickle my asshole just before I unleash the dog of war...
It's okay.
Before you can say, why? Giuliani decides to dump his mistress for his side mistress.
And after that speech that you just made to the press about not giving a damn. I should have seen this coming.
Gee, bitch. You think?
You're a snake, you know that? You really are.
Jokes aside, I actually do find this to be a pretty emotional breakup scene. I know it may sound weird. I feel a little more emotion for Giuliani breaking up with his mistress than the breakdown of the relationship he has with his wife, but unlike that relationship and the now relationship with Judith Nathan, this relationship is the only relationship of the three where we, the audience, were allowed to watch and really see any development. And so yeah, as messed up as it is, it has way more weight than all the others. We then see Giuliani preparing to run for the New York Senate in the year 2000 against Hillary Clinton.
I'm not the only one shocked by the fact that this woman has such utter contempt for New Yorkers. She's never worked here, she's never voted here, she's never lived here, never held office here, never held office anywhere. What am I thinking?
Huh. I guess Hillary was always trying to shove her ass into seats no one wanted her in. We also find out that Donna, a part-time actress, has taken a role in the play The Vagina Monologues, which Rudy is not happy about.
My position is, I believe that it's inappropriate for a so-called first lady to appear in that kind of filth, what they'll call a filth, you know.
Really?
You know, you're really beautiful. And a woman that looks like that has to have her own special scent.
Maybe you could tell me what you think of this scent. Oh, you dirty boy, you. Oh. Donald, I thought you were a gentleman.
You can't say I didn't try.
I guess it's different when the mayor of New York himself does it. Despite running for the Senate, Giuliani carelessly meets with Judith, and with barely 10 minutes left of the runtime, the film decides now is the time to cover Rudy Giuliani's battle with prostate cancer during the last year of his mayoralty. The initial reaction he has to prostate cancer is wonderfully acted by James Woods.
I will need each of you to carry on, and I will carry on here as best I can.
During this period, he drops out of the Senate race and announces to the world that he intends to separate from Donna, something that Giuliani did in real life without letting Donna know ahead of time before he announced it publicly.
I am hopeful that we will be able to agree to a legal separation.
You couldn't even tell me to my face.
What can you say, but what a cunt. But does this speedy montage of Giuliani going through chemo and his third-time love giving him support help develop Rudy and Judith's relationship as well as make him sympathetic? No, not really.
Oh, the world's filling up with people who Rudy Giuliani will never please.
But then 9/11 came, and due to the way he led the city in such a time of pandemonium, Giuliani appeared to redeem himself in the eyes of many for his various mistakes, and he became, as so many called him, America's mayor.
Well, things are looking up.
We see him appear at a funeral for someone who died in 9/11, and he gives a admittedly moving speech, with the exception of one line.
And I remember him saying, "My mother always warned me I should put on clean underwear, but I forgot to put them on today."
Right.
We see him on his way to another event with Judith by his side. There's been so little that I honestly don't give a shit about the relationship, not that it would matter in a couple of years, and he says,
Back to work.
God, how I love this city.
And that's Rudy, the Rudy Giuliani story. What the fuck was the USA Network thinking? This film is a cheap rush mess. The transitioning and editing is horrible. It tries to cram too much in such a short amount of time. Stanley Weiser's previous written film, Witness to the Mob, had the advantage of being almost 3 hours, giving it plenty of time to develop. This film, holy shit.
Why are you insisting on aggravating me today?
With the uneven writing, it's hard to tell what this movie's trying to say in regards to Rudy Giuliani, and to put it simply, the film comes off like it has bipolar disorder and is clearly not taking its meds.
This is nuts. This is...
Another big problem I have with the film is the constant use of real footage of 9/11 and stock footage of various events from Rudy Giuliani's life. One of the most obvious being when he's sworn in as mayor for the first time, and from the front, it's James Woods. But from the back, it's clearly the real Giuliani.
Nobody will ever notice that. Filmmaking is not about the tiny details, it's about the big picture.
20 to 30% of this film is stock footage, to the point that you'd swear Jim Wynorski directed it.
Big chase and a big chest. Add those two to the film, and you are going to be a winner. Make sure you have a little action, a couple of good-looking babes. You can't really lose.
The real footage of the Twin Towers on 9/11 is... how do I say this? It comes off a bit shameless and a little exploitive, and not in the way that I like. I mean, I love exploitation films, but this was a huge fucking tragedy. And to use this footage so soon in a way that just plays on people's emotions in light of that tragedy, It'd be like doing a film about Hiroshima and then using real footage of people getting burned alive.
I can't fart loud enough to express my opinion.
Reception for the film was, and still is, pretty negative. Shockingly, the film had 2 Emmy nominations. Best Makeup, which... okay, I'll give him that. An Outstanding Actor in a Mini-Series or Movie for James Woods. Don't get me wrong, I love James Woods, regardless of whatever he said as a person. He is a great actor, and he's one of my top 5 favorites, but his performance in this is hard to rank because he gives the same range and emotion you've come to expect from him, and he makes the best with the dialogue he's given.
Then what is the problem?
Kind of like Cuba Gooding Jr. as O.J. Simpson in The People vs. O.J. Simpson, Woods as Giuliani just doesn't feel like the real Giuliani. I do think he does well, but he looks and sounds nothing like Rudy Giuliani.
There are 3 really important things in my life. The law, and the Yankees, and opera.
And at every point at which I was nominated by the President of the United States, I was confirmed by the Senate.
He doesn't try to imitate his voice, he's too slim, and, just my opinion, has way more sex appeal than Giuliani has ever had.
Come on, don't be ridiculous.
The only thing I think they really got right was the hair with that really shitty comb over. Although, according to James Woods, Giuliani praised his performance as him, so go figure.
That motherfucker's on crack. Who you telling?
So all in all, Rudy, the Rudy Giuliani story, is not a good movie, even by TV movie standards. This film is so bad that it crashes and burns harder than the Twin Towers. But with that being said, the film can be enjoyable if you watch it with the Mystery Science Theater 3000 mindset.
Washington Land, the new Disney theme park.
It's fascinating to watch as a time capsule of a different era where Giuliani was a respected politician, and despite how things have turned out in recent years, he did play a big part in cleaning up the city of New York from the Death Wish and Taxi Driver years, and for all the good stuff he was able to do way back in the day, I say, good job. For all the insane shit he's done in the past couple of years, I think the movie Bad Santa can put it best.
You need many years of therapy. Many fucking years of therapy.
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this review. Coming up is the month of October, and you know what that means. Hopefully a more fun time.
See you in Pittsburgh.
We're working full time to put you in the slammer. Say hello to Fat Tony for me. Tell him I'm looking forward to sitting down with him real soon.
Rudy Giuliani, that cocksucker motherfucker who ruins a lot of people's lives.